Hi guys, so in today's video I'll be showing you how I achieved this set of nails, so if you want to see how I did that, then just keep on watching. So the first thing that I do is I use a cuticle. I don't know if you'd call it a cutter or a trimmer, but I used one of those and I just cut off any of the excess skin around my cuticle. I'm making sure just to cut off the dead skin in the cuticle, not any of the healthy skin, because that will cut you. I know that it's not really recommended that you do this. I am not a licensed nail tech, or do I claim to be? I have not gone to school for any of this, so this is just my process. It's not something that you have to do, but this is just what I do. And then after I cut off all of the excess cuticle, I push back the healthy cuticles and anything that is left over that didn't come off when I used the cuticle cutter. I use the sharper end to kind of scrape any dead skin that is stuck to the top of the nail bed, just to get that off. So I'm just pushing all of my cuticles back on the sides and at the back to make sure there's nothing on top of the nail bed. You want it clear of all of that dead skin so that the acrylic will actually stick to your nail and it won't give you as much lifting. So after that, I am just using a sponge file to rough up the surface of the nail. You don't want it to be shiny. If it's shiny, then the acrylic doesn't bond to it as well. So you just kind of want to scratch it up a little bit. You don't want to go too crazy or too hard. You're not really looking to shave off the top layer of your nail. You're really just getting the shine off of it. After I did this set, I realized that this file didn't actually work as well as some of the other files that I use. I don't know if it didn't quite have enough grit or it kind of smoothed it out since it was a sponge rather than a harder grit file. So I would recommend, I usually use a 150 grit from Young Nails. It's actually the file that I'm using right now, just to clean up the free edge of the nail so that it's a little smoother. It's not all janky. So usually this is the file that I use for the tops of my nails, just to remove the shine. I'm not really sure why I used the sponge one on this day, but it didn't work as well. So that's how they look when they're all filed. So I just went and washed them off really quick and dried them off with a paper towel. So now I am using a nail form. You want to take off the circle and put it on the back. It just gives it a little more structure. And then I am doing a stiletto set, so you just want to pinch the very tip of the bottom together. And then you open the back, make sure it's open enough to fit on your nail, and you want to make sure it's really nice and snug up to your nail, so that there's no product seeping between the form and in the bottom of your nail. So you just want to make sure it's nice and tight, and then you also want to make sure that it's pretty straight out. And then I just tighten the back of the sticky part around my finger, and then on the edge I kind of use my fingers in a little diagonal pinching motion to make it sharp and pointy. So you'll see that I do the same thing with the rest of them. So that is how they look when they're all on. So the next step is to put the protein bond on your natural nail. I do 2 coats of this, so I just go in with a light coat on each of my fingers on one hand, and then I let it dry for maybe like a minute or so, and then I go in with a second coat just to make sure that it's nice and tacky and that there's a really good layer of it for the acrylic to stick to. I would argue that this is the most important step in the whole process. The first color I'm going to be using is a tealish greenish glitter, and then I also have a teal plain powder which I mixed in to make the color that I wanted, and then I'm also using some cover paint for some of the nails. First thing I do is I just dip my brush into the acrylic liquid and I get the excess off one side and then dip it into the powder and get a nice bead, a good size bead. I did do these a little longer. As you can see, as I keep going, I go to about the 4th line on the form, which is a lot longer than I usually do. I usually go to like the 2nd. So I just put that on there and I make sure that it's all flat and has an even surface, and I clean up the edges and push them where I want them to be to make the shape at the end so that it has a nice stiletto shape. And on this nail, I am just doing all glitter. So I'm just going in with the same powder combination for this whole nail. And then as you get further back towards your cuticle, you want a wetter bead so that it can run down into the rest of it. You want to kind of use gravity to your advantage. It was a little hard for me to do that while I was filming because I wanted to make sure that you guys could see, but a lot of times I will put the bead on and then hold my fingertips towards the table so that the bead will do most of the work for me and it will run down. So that I don't really have to move it as much. So on the next nail, I am doing a part cover pink and part glitter. So I started with the cover pink, so I figured that would be easier, and then I did a kind of reverse application for the glitter for the stiletto part. And then for this nail, I wanted kind of a round shape. So I'm just making sure that that line is how I like it. It's kind of like a reverse smile line. So I'm just trying to make sure that that's in the correct shape before I move on. And it doesn't really matter if it's a little bit raised up where the glitter is, because when we file it will go down and it'll all blend in. So I'm just adding a second bead to create the length for the stiletto. And just like the other one, I'm patting it into place to make sure that it is a nice even surface, and then I'm also working on the edges to make sure that they are going in the direction that I want them to and that it leads to a nice point. And this glitter was a little hard to work with. I don't have any clear powder at the moment, which a lot of the glitters that you order from Young Nails, they're just plain glitters. They do have some that are mixed already, but the plain glitters that you get, you need to mix them with clear acrylic powder so that you can actually have like an acrylic powder, because otherwise it's just plain glitter and it doesn't work. So I didn't have any more clear to mix with it, so it was a little heavy on the glitter, and that's kind of why I mixed the tealish blue color in with it to give it a little more actual acrylic powder. But it was still a bit too glittery, so it was a little bit hard to work with. So I just skipped the middle nail because it was the same exact thing as the pinky nail. It was a complete glitter nail. On the index finger, I am doing a half and half. So on one half of the nail, I am going in with the cover pink, and then on the other half of the nail, I will go in with the glitter. So as with all the others, I started with edge of the nail, the stiletto edge of the nail first, and then going back towards the cuticle, making sure that the beads in the back are pretty wet so that they can easily run into the rest of it. And then I am making sure that the center line is nice and straight. As long as one of the lines is really straight, whether I started with the glitter or the cover pink, and then added the other color on, as long as the first layer has a nice straight line, the other one can overlap it, that's fine, because once you file it down, it will have that straight line down the middle anyway. So that's why I'm not being too careful with the glitter, because I know that once I file it down, it'll have a nice straight line under there anyway. So as you can see, sometimes I put a little bit too much product next to the cuticle, so I just make sure that there is space between the cuticle and the acrylic, otherwise it will cause some lifting. So I did the same exact thing to the other hand. As you can see, the form is still on my other thumbnail, but from here I start to file, and the first thing that I file are the edges. So I make sure all of the edges of each nail are exactly how I like them to be. I do one nail at a time, so I'll do the edges of one nail, and then I'll do the top of it to make sure that it's a nice even surface. You don't want any lumps and bumps. Sometimes I use a 100 grit file. Here I am using a 150 grit file, which is what I've been using as of late. So I just do that with all of them. After I file with the 100 or the 150 grit, I file with a sponge. I will link down below exactly what sponge file it is, but just to even it out, and it makes it a smoother surface so that it's not coarse to the touch. So after that, I just wash my hands, and then I am going in with some white acrylic paint to paint on some designs. So on the half and half, I just wanted a white line down the center where that line is. So I mean, really, if you were going to plan on doing that, then you didn't even need the acrylic to be a really super precise line, because you're not going to see it anyway. You're just going to cover it up with paint. And then I am also going around the kind of reverse smile line on my ring finger with white acrylic paint as well. I had actually attempted to do some stamping. That was my original intent, and that's why I wanted the acrylic on my pointer finger to be a nice line because I was gonna do a cool stamp over that, but I have been struggling with working with the nail stamping business. I think it's user error. I'm not really sure, but I'm gonna continue trying it out and seeing how that goes. But I mean, as you can tell from my hands, you can see the paint all over them, and they're a disaster. So the next thing I wanted to do is add a little some gems. So I have this little wheel of gems. They have different shapes in them. I ordered it off Amazon quite some time ago. So I just grabbed some of the teardrop shaped ones, and I'm putting the Young Nail stain resistant gel top coat. I just put that down where I was going to put the gems, and then I'm placing the gems on where I want them. The top gem above the white line is actually a moon, so I just have the shape of the moon kind of following the shape of the white line. And then once I have all the gems in place, I just place that under the lamp for a minute to set them in place. And then on the index finger, I wanted to put some rectangle gems, so I'm just putting some of those down where I put the line of white paint. I'm just following the same process. I put some clear gel polish down first, and then I'm just making sure their gems are in the place that I want them to be and spaced out how I like, and then I place that under the lamp for about a minute again. And then I decided on my ring finger that I didn't like just the one moon above the white line, so I added another one. So you can see I just popped off the one that was there. I just popped it out of the gel polish, and then I put some more gel polish down, and then I placed the two where I wanted them. And then on the rest of my nails, I decided to do a little dot design around the cuticle. So I'm just using a daughter. I believe I ordered this off of Amazon a really long time ago as well. I've had them for ages, but they work really well, and obviously they last a while. So you just dip it into the paint, and I did one large dot in the center, and then I did increasingly smaller dots as I went around the cuticle. And that's what they look like without a top coat. And so I am using the same gel polish that I used to place the gems on my nails with. So it's the Young Nail stain resistant top coat. So I'm just brushing that on. I have a small LED lamp. It's like a travel size lamp. So it's not very big. I can't fit my whole hand in there. So what I do is I put a coat of the top coat on my four fingers. So like my index to my pinky. I do a coat on all four of those, and then I pop it in the lamp. And I usually you only have to do it with an LED light, you should only have to do it for 30 seconds. I usually do 60 seconds, if not longer, just to make sure. I don't want anything ruining it after I'm completely finished, so I am kind of particular about that. So I pop it in for more time than needed just to make sure that everything's all good to go. I don't want anything getting messed up when I'm all done, because that's extremely frustrating. It's happened to me before. And then once I'm done with those four fingers and they're all cured and everything, then I'll go in and do the thumbnail. I do it that way. I could put the top coat on my thumbnail and then just cure them at different times, but I feel like sometimes if I put the gel polish on my thumbnail and it's kind of sideways with my hand flat on the table, that the gel polish tends to run and bulk up on the outside of my nail. So I don't like that, so that's why I just do the forefingers first, make sure those are all level, so that the top coat sits evenly while it cures, and then I just go in and do my thumbnail after, so that that has an even layer of top coat on it as well. My hands are a disaster. They're covered in paint. The trials and tribulations of nail stamping. Let me know down below if you guys have problems with nail stamping if you tried it, because whew, I seem to have quite the time with that, so make me feel less alone if you have trouble with it too, or give me some tips on what I may be doing wrong. So anyway, these are the finished nails. I really liked how they turned out. They were a little long, but I think they were gorgeous and I love the color. It's one of my favorite colors. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it was helpful to kind of see how I build my nails and paint some designs on them and everything like that. If you have any questions or suggestions for any nail videos that you want to see from me, leave it in the comments down below, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!